Before we dive into this powerful story, if you believe in standing up for what's right and sharing stories that matter, hit that subscribe button and join the Black Vocals family. Your support helps us bring more voices like Alyssa's to light. Now, let's begin. An HOA president believed she possessed the authority to publicly shame a newcomer by summoning law enforcement to the scene. What she didn't anticipate was being rendered speechless by a single, undeniable form of identification. Your first day in a new residence shouldn't resemble a courtroom drama. Yet that's precisely the reality Alyssa Trenholm confronted the instant her moving vehicle rolled onto the curved asphalt of Desert Bloom Drive in Scottsdale, Arizona. 15 years of military service with the Air Force had equipped her with the skills to navigate high-pressure situations, to maintain composure when others unraveled. She'd been deployed to locations where the thunderous roar of aircraft and helicopters shook windows to their frames. She'd mastered the art of adaptation, learned to read human behavior with precision, and carried herself with understated authority. But nothing in her extensive training could have prepared her for what awaited in this deceptively tranquil neighborhood of Southwestern-style homes and pristinely maintained gardens. The desert sun blazed against the truck's windshield as Alyssa maneuvered the vehicle alongside the curb. She killed the ignition, drew in a steadying breath, and gazed at the two-story townhouse she'd fought so hard to acquire. To her, this wasn't merely a structure with neutral-toned siding and terracotta roofing. It represented tangible proof of everything she'd earned through sacrifice: security, autonomy, and the long-awaited promise of tranquility after years of dedicated service. Her younger sister Keisha trailed behind in a compact SUV, announcing her arrival with a celebratory honk. Alyssa responded with a laugh and a wave, rolling her shoulders to release the accumulated tension from the extended journey from Luke Air Force Base. "Home sweet home," she whispered to herself, though she understood that unpacking the mountain of belongings awaiting her would take considerable effort before it truly felt like sanctuary. As she descended from the truck's cab, Keisha parked and approached with an enthusiastic grin. "You ready to haul all this inside?" "Not really," Alyssa admitted with a chuckle, "but I've tackled harder challenges." They exchanged a knowing smile, the kind of effortless connection only siblings share, before Alyssa pivoted to retrieve the first carton. That's when she registered it, the aggressive percussion of heels striking pavement. From her peripheral vision, a figure marched purposefully across the street, a woman appearing to be in her late 60s, tall, with posture that radiated self-appointed authority. Her hair was rigidly styled, her blouse fastened to the collar despite the oppressive heat, and her expression was carved from granite, as if she were approaching an adversary rather than a neighbor. "Excuse me!" The woman's voice sliced through the afternoon air, echoing across the cul-de-sac. "What are you doing here?" Keisha froze mid-step, her eyes darting toward Alyssa. Alyssa tightened her grip on the box and rotated slowly, meeting the stranger's penetrating stare. "I'm moving in," Alyssa responded evenly. "This is my home." The woman's eyebrows shot upward. "Your home? That's impossible. I know everyone in this community. I'm the HOA president. You must be mistaken." Alyssa lowered the box onto the truck bed and crossed her arms. She wasn't accustomed to being confronted like this, at least not in civilian life, and certainly not within 30 minutes of arriving somewhere. "I'm not mistaken," she replied, her voice maintaining its steady timbre. "The house is mine. Papers signed, keys in my pocket." The woman planted herself at the driveway's edge, hands anchored to her hips. "What's your name?" "Alyssa Trenholm," she answered, keeping her voice controlled. The woman squinted at her, as if the name itself contradicted the face before her. Keisha finally interjected, irritation flashing across her features. "Is there a problem here? She just bought the house." "There's absolutely a problem," the woman fired back. "People can't just materialize here. We have standards, regulations. This is private property, and if you don't belong here, I will call the police." The declaration landed with weight. Alice, a felt heat rising in her chest, but forced herself to breathe deeply. She'd navigated confrontation before, on deployments, in high-stakes negotiations, in scenarios where a single misstep could trigger disaster. She refused to allow a stranger in a crisp blouse to dictate the tone of her new beginning. "Ma'am," Alyssa said carefully, "I belong here. You'll see that soon enough." But the woman, who hadn't even offered her name, didn't retreat. She extracted a phone from her purse and began tapping the screen with sharp, deliberate movements. Keisha leaned closer to Alyssa and muttered, "Is she serious?" "Oh, she's serious," Alyssa replied quietly. She'd learned long ago that silence could sometimes communicate more powerfully than words. Still, as Geraldine, though her name remained unknown at that moment, snapped her phone shut and glared, Alyssa felt the weight of something unexpected. Not here, not in this community she'd believed would finally welcome her. What she didn't yet realize was that this confrontation marked only the beginning. The real test of her patience was about to arrive. Geraldine didn't depart after disconnecting her call with law enforcement. She remained positioned at the driveway's boundary like a sentinel guarding sacred ground, her chin elevated higher, her expression locked in unwavering determination. It appeared as though she anticipated Alyssa would collapse, admit defeat before the patrol vehicles even materialized. Alyssa bent down, secured a smaller carton from the truck, and carried it toward the entrance. She refused to grant Geraldine the satisfaction of witnessing her hesitation. Yet with every step forward, she felt the weight of observation. Neighbors concealed behind window coverings, a child on a bicycle decelerating to eavesdrop, a man watering his lawn with the hose lingering too long in one position. "Excuse me, I told you not to move anything inside," Geraldine snapped, her voice razor-sharp. "You're interfering with a community that has strict oversight. That home was not approved for me," Alyssa interjected, halting midway along the walkway. The box rested against her hip. Her voice wasn't elevated, but the firmness within it carried across the cul-de-sac. Geraldine blinked, but offered no response. Instead, she huffed, crossing her arms tighter. Keisha stepped forward. Mrs. gesturing in exasperation. "Are you hearing yourself? She bought this place. She has the keys. You think she showed up here for entertainment? That truck doesn't rent itself." Geraldine ignored Keisha entirely, maintaining her focus on Alyssa. "Do you have documentation?" she demanded. "Proof of purchase? A deed? Anything at all?" Alyssa placed the box gently on the ground, brushing her hands against her jeans. She reached into her back pocket, extracted the house keys, and dangled them with a faint metallic jingle. "This is all the proof I need today," she stated. "The rest is in a folder inside that SUV. But honestly, you have no right to demand it. You're not law enforcement." The silence that followed was tense, broken only by the hiss of sprinklers from a yard down the street. Geraldine's face flushed pink, but she didn't budge. "You're out of line," Keisha muttered under her breath. Geraldine raised her voice for everyone within earshot to hear. "I have lived in this community for 32 years. I've overseen every transaction, every event, every improvement. I know who belongs and who doesn't. And I'm telling you, this is irregular. We have procedures." Alyssa's jaw tightened, but she inhaled deeply, her training engaging. She'd been in enough confrontations to recognize when someone craved escalation. Geraldine thrived on control, and Alyssa wasn't about to surrender that satisfaction. "Mrs. Pruitt," Alyssa said, finally placing deliberate emphasis on the name. "I'm not here to disrupt your little kingdom. I'm here because I earned this. I worked, I saved, I signed the papers. This is my house. Now you'll have to learn to accept it." That should have concluded the matter. Instead, Geraldine smirked. "We'll see what the officers think. she said coldly. "I can assure you they'll be very interested in your explanation." The words carried a sharp undertone. Alyssa recognized it immediately. She'd heard it before, in different forms, in different regions of the country, that condescending tone suggesting she was already guilty of something, even when she wasn't. Keisha muttered, "This is ridiculous. She's acting like you broke in through the window." "Let her," Alyssa whispered back. "It'll only prove what this is really about." Minutes dragged forward. Geraldine didn't move from her post. Neighbors whispered to each other from driveways, some shaking their heads, others looking away. The atmosphere wasn't just uncomfortable. It was building toward something heavier, as if the entire street awaited a verdict. Alyssa grabbed another box and Dee carried it to the door. She unlocked it, swung it open, and stepped inside, letting the wail of sirens faded. But the flashing lights continued their hypnotic dance against the stucco facades of Desert Bloom Drive. The two patrol vehicles sat idling at the curb, doors closed, engines humming. The officers hadn't emerged yet, and that suspended moment stretched like elastic. Every second felt longer than the last. Geraldine straightened her blouse, clearly rehearsing her performance. Her chin lifted as though she'd been waiting years for a moment where her authority would receive official validation. Meanwhile, Alyssa leaned against the truck, arms folded, keys still gripped in her hand. Keisha paced near the SUV, muttering anxiously, "I swear, Alyssa, if they come over here and treat you like you don't belong." "They might," Alyssa said calmly. "But I'll handle it. Don't step in unless I ask you to." Keisha threw her hands up. "You want me to just stand here while this woman rewrites reality? She called the cops like you broke into your own house." "I know," Alyssa replied. "But I've been through bigger storms than Geraldine Pruitt." She forced her shoulders to stay loose. But inside, her thoughts churned. This wasn't just about a house. This was about dignity, and whether the people around her, the ones whispering, watching, judging, would see her for who she truly was. Across the street, neighbors had gathered in clusters. A teenager leaned against a car, phone already out, recording. An older couple sat on lawn chairs, arms crossed. A woman whispered something to her husband, who only shrugged. It was as if the entire neighborhood had transformed into a silent jury. "Look at them!" Keisha exhaled hard. "Not one person came over to say hello. They're just waiting to see if you get dragged away." "That's their choice," Alyssa said, her voice carrying controlled weight. "I know the truth. That's enough for me right now." But inside, her stomach twisted. She'd led units overseas, mediated conflicts, dealt with angry civilians in foreign countries. Yet here, in Arizona, on the driveway of her own home, she felt the sting of being measured, doubted, questioned. Finally, one car door opened. A tall officer stepped out, adjusting his sunglasses. His partner followed, jotting something on a notepad before sliding it into his pocket. Geraldine immediately sprang into action, striding toward them like she'd called reinforcements to a battle she'd been winning. "There they are," she said dramatically. "Thank goodness you came quickly. We've got a serious problem here." Alyssa caught the faint eye roll from Keisha and held up a hand. "Not yet," she whispered. Geraldine launched into her version of events, pointing directly at Alyssa as if she were a suspect on trial. She showed up with a truck, started unloading boxes into a home that doesn't belong to her. "I'm the HOA president. I know who lives here, who buys property, who rents. I know every file. She's not on any of them." The officers listened without interruption. One of them, a shorter man with graying hair at his temples, nodded occasionally, but didn't write anything down. When Geraldine finally paused, out of breath, the taller officer turned toward Alyssa. "Ma'am," he said evenly, "can you tell me what's going on here?" Alyssa pushed off the side of the truck and walked forward with steady steps. Her boots pressed against the warm pavement. She stopped a few feet from them, her tone clear and respectful. What's going on is simple. I bought this house. I closed last week. My name is on the deed. I have the keys in my pocket, the documents in that SUV, and a moving truck full of my belongings. That's it. Geraldine scoffed. That's her story, but she can't prove it. She's trespassing, and I want her removed immediately. The words floated in the air, and Alyssa could feel every eye on her, waiting. She slid her thumb over the edge of her wallet, ready. She wasn't just proving ownership. She was about to make Geraldine swallow every word she'd thrown like daggers. But before she opened it, she decided to let the silence stretch just a little longer. Because sometimes, the pause before the truth lands is louder than the truth itself. The silence didn't last long. Alyssa slid her military ID from the leather fold of her wallet and held it between two fingers. The Arizona sun glinted against the plastic, making the lettering shine. She didn't rush. She extended her arm slowly toward the taller officer, her face composed, her movements deliberate. He stepped forward and took it without hesitation, lowering his sunglasses to read. His partner leaned closer. Both men scanned the card. Alyssa could see their eyes move across the details. Trenholm, Alyssa Renee. Rank, Technical Sergeant. Branch, United States Air Force. Years of service, 15. The taller officer's expression softened almost instantly. He glanced back at Alyssa, then at Geraldine. "This is valid," he said, "and it matches the name she gave us." For the first time, Geraldine's confidence cracked. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Keisha folded her arms and let out a low laugh. "Guess that wasn't the answer you wanted, huh?" "Ma'am," the shorter officer said, turning toward Geraldine. "Do you have any evidence to suggest this homeowner doesn't belong here? A deed in your files? An HOA record that contradicts her claim?" Geraldine stammered. "Well, no, not on me, but I know what's right. I've overseen this community for decades. I've never seen her name." The taller officer handed the ID back to Alyssa. "That's not how this works. She has legal identification and a military record to match. Unless you have hard evidence of a crime, we're done here." The words landed with weight. The crowd of neighbors that had gathered shifted slightly, whispers rippling across driveways. Some people turned away, embarrassed. Others leaned in, curious to see what Geraldine would say next. Alyssa tucked her ID back into her wallet with quiet precision. Then she lifted her eyes, steady and direct. "I told you this was my home. I've got the closing documents if you'd like to see them, but it seems unnecessary now." The shorter officer gave a small nod. "That won't be needed, ma'am. You're clear." Geraldine's cheeks burned red, but she wasn't done. "Wait. You don't understand. This community has standards. We've had problems before." "Problems like what?" Alyssa interrupted, her tone sharper than before. The crowd hushed, waiting. Geraldine opened her mouth, then closed it. Her eyes darted toward the officers, hoping for backup. But neither man moved. "Ma'am," the taller officer said firmly, "we're not here to enforce HOA preferences. We're here to address actual crimes, and there is no crime here." The kid with the phone finally spoke up from across the street. "Looks like she just made a fool of herself." His voice carried farther than he realized, and several neighbors chuckled nervously. Geraldine spun toward him, eyes narrowing. "This isn't funny. Respect your elders." But the laughter had already punctured the air of authority she clung to. Alyssa stepped forward, her voice low but clear. "You tried to humiliate me in front of an entire neighborhood. You called the police on me like I was a criminal. And for what? Because I didn't fit into the picture you had in your head?" Geraldine swallowed hard. Her shoulders stiffened, but she didn't answer. Keisha couldn't hold back anymore. "She thought she could shame you out of your own driveway. but all she did was prove she doesn't know who she's dealing with. The taller officer glanced, seated at Alyssa. Do you want us to file a report, document what happened? Alyssa considered it. Filing a report might put Geraldine's actions on record, but it could also stir the pot further. After a beat, she shook her head. Not today. I just want to move into my home without being treated like a trespasser. If this story moved you, if it reminded you why we must stand up against prejudice in all its forms, then don't just watch, take action. Subscribe to Black Vocals, hit that notification bell, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Because change doesn't happen in silence. It happens when we speak up, stand tall, and refuse to be erased. This is Black Vocals, and we're just getting started.